Here's the other side flipped over, and as you see down in here, the welds I've coated with the same stuff I showed you before. So I used, in this case, a 2-inch piece of masking tape to do my first cut. And then on the patch panel, what I did is I set that same 2 inches up from the bottom up so that I'd know this is how much extra I'd have between the two when I started doing that splice cut. And like the previous panel, this one has plenty of end room. So what I'll probably do in this case is when this is in place and lined up, that's how much extra I have. I will probably heat that edge and bend it over since it's only going to be a couple inches instead of putting it on the brake and trying to get it perfect now. My concern is getting this bottom lip tight, just like that. But as you can see, they also give you a good inch of lip here, and we only need about half of that. But what it does is it gives you a nice, strong lip for when you're welding so it doesn't warp. So I'm going to leave it there until I get this where I want it and set in and spot welded. I'm going to spot weld this from the bottom to that previous patch panel, and that will keep it right where we want it. I've got to do a little cut on this end so that the lip, the bending lip, will be right there and not sticking out. And then that will be done exactly the same way, spot welded along the entirety, and then cut with the body saw either right on the edge of this panel if I can, or I'll cut a little bit of the new patch panel as I do it. That'll give it a nice cut. This line here is to tell me there's a structure right here so that the body saw can't go that way. I'll have to use the 3-inch cutoff. Same thing here. We've got a structure there. This support here is spot welded to the previous one we did, and here is where I missed it. So I know when I go back on the other side and spot that in, I got to go up just a little higher. I'll have to weld that and patch it up. But that is what that'll look like. And the same way I showed you the seam on the front will be done on the back. You could have went up here to this line. It's a pretty strong body line to work on if you wanted to seam in here. If there was that much rust, I would have did that, but this panel was pretty strong besides the lip itself, so I'm not going up here. This is pretty stiff right here, and I'll be able to hold that heat right down here, so any body work will be, just in this, maybe inch or two area here, if that weld concaves, which they usually do. It'll bow this panel down in and the new patch panel. So you usually end up with a good 1/4 to an inch of a little bit of a dip there, which is perfect for filling the body filler. No sense messing with a perfect body line on there. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this, what you're seeing here, is the primer. That's one coat of prime over epoxy. And the reason we do that is when I get done media blasting these panels, I hit them with epoxy, but most epoxy is not sandable. And it's usually wet on wet, which means wet, as soon as that sealer cures, which is about a couple hours, you can go over that directly with wet primer. So we put one coat on, and then you got something to sand on, because the epoxy does not like being sanded. So if you ever get into that, and you're going to do epoxy, get a coat of prime on it too right away, and it'll make your life easier when you get to the sanding part. but not so much primer that you have a buildup. You just want enough to sand on. All right, I will get that on, get her in place, and I'll show you how that goes. Okay, the whole top repair is welded. And as you see here, these are what they call studs from a stud gun. If you can get behind the panel, you could probably push it up a little, but I use the stud gun with this tool. And I'll take that along here, like so, and pull up right in the center of my weld. Not too hard at any of them, just a little yank here and there, till you see that light through there. This is a little high to my weld, where it's starting to get into a pretty nice light gap right there. That's what I'm looking for. That is too much, a little too much. It's pretty close. So I'll pull those up until that gap is minimal. So you'll use very little filler to fill that repair in, and then a little finish grinding on the welds. And that's it. That's how you patch them. I've got to do some spot. Here you see a spot weld. There. And here. I put those in from the back when I had the patch in place. I've still got to bend this lip around. And then this one up here, that's going to need sucked in. Geez, a good 1/8 inch or better. But that's about all there is to it. To put the skin on, I used a tool, just a hammer and dolly on this one, since it's going to get filler work down here anyway, but it's pretty decent. So when this is done, I like it. I'll spot weld a few spots on this lip under here, and that'll be off to body work. Hey, thanks for watching at CoverallAutoRestoration.com. You can see all the jobs we've done and what's going on right now. Thanks for looking.